Hello, you're watching the Budapest Speed Shop. I'm usually working in Kentucky, but I came to visit my friend in Hungary, and I actually bought a car, which I have a video of. This is a 1966 Fiat 1500. So it's got several problems with it, so today I'm gonna try to solve some mysterious shaking in the car. So it kind of rattles when I'm going too fast with it, so I'm assuming there's several different areas where it's shaking from. So that's what we're gonna work on today. So the first problem is that this car has similar parts as a Polski Fiat, a Polish Fiat. So therefore, a lot of parts came from that car. And one of them is the flywheel, and the flywheel is balanced to the crankshaft. So you see it in this original Fiat shop manual. So if you remove that major component on it, then the whole thing gonna start shaking. So I think I'm gonna put the original one back in, and I also bought a new clutch assembly from Mr. Fiat in Atlanta, and that's what it looks like. The problem is that when you remove a used one, you're supposed to measure the spring forces, and then after, when you put it back together, you're supposed to assemble it and then adjust it. Make sure every one of these arms are the same distance from the bottom. So this one is a new one. It's already pre-adjusted. We don't have to worry about it. And here's a new clutch disc, and that's what we're gonna put on. Also, the last owner couldn't find original Pirelli parts, so he put some sort of aftermarket thing, which is really, really hard, and then it's unable to move too well. So that's not really dampening the shocks or the shakes or the rattles. The other thing is what I want to change is this bearing, the support bearing on the drive shaft. And this is how it looks like. It's actually a Ferrari part, so it was easy to obtain. So that's the other thing I want to change. And then we're going to change the oil to a classic car oil. I got differential gear oil because we're going to work on that as well. Because I'm going to have to change the bearings, the wheel bearings in the back. That's going to be another project. But we're going to change the differential oil, and we're going to change the engine oil in it. So first thing what I'm going to do, oh yeah, and then one more thing. The propeller shaft has a hardy joint or something. So I'm going to have to change that too, because that's what's on the car. It came from another Polish car, and then it's just not exactly in a top condition. So first thing I did, I removed the battery cable, and we're going to remove the starter and move it a little bit to the back. It's got 3 bolts on it, and then the starter unit can come back, and then we can go under the car and start working on that part. The starter is off, so now we can go under the car and start removing things there. Here's the bottom of the car. Here's that nice little rear axle, and then as we're going forward, here's the drive shaft, here's the support bearing, and here's this flexible joint plate at the front, and the transmission itself with the bolts what we need to take out. So first, what we're gonna do is I think we're gonna remove the middle one first, then the back with these tiny little bolts, and then we're gonna go to the very front and remove the drive shaft bolts from it. And while I'm looking at it, it looks like there's some oil coming down, and maybe my clutch leaks a little bit. This is the clutch actuating cylinder. It might be leaking a little bit, but it might be just the breather coming down from there. Now that support bearing is off in the middle, so you can see the little flexing what it does, and it does it every time it turns while the drive shaft is in motion. I'm taking off these bolts in the back. If I move it without the car, the handbrake is set, then the whole car actually starts moving. So now I asked my friend to actually push the car a little bit, and then we can get to the last knot on the other side. Now we're gonna remove the drive shaft with the hardy plate on it. So first we're gonna remove this, and then we're gonna hold it on the back, and then just get the whole thing off. So 3 of them, 3 bolts will come out. I'm having a hard time getting this off because there is a little lip on it, but this one probably stuck on. And that was a little surprising. As soon as we took it off, the differential oil started to leak out. I never seen a vehicle where when you take this thing off, it's actually in one oil compartment with the differential. So yeah, it leaked out on the floor, so we're gonna clean up the floor, and then we're gonna let it leak out into a container. My friend here is a real classic car guy, so he told me that this is one of the options, that there may be the vibration came from here because this knot might be loose. And sure enough, it was loose. So I want to show you the shop manual, what the shop manual say about this. Here's the shop manual, and you can see here is the knot, what is loose. Here is the crush washer, crush sleeve in between. And now I know I'm going to have to find another one because it's a one-time deal. Only once you tighten it, then that's it. So I'm going to have to find one of those and change it at a later date. But right now, we just tighten it up with the torque, what the book recommends. And that is 57.9 and 115.7 foot-pounds. So we did this, and hopefully it's going to work. So next thing we're going to do, get on the drive shaft, see where the markings on it, and see if they put it back together correctly. We're going to change this support bearing, and we're going to change this joint at the end, or flex disc on the end. Next thing we're going to work on is the propeller shaft. In the shop manual, it says that the propeller shaft has several marks which we need to follow, and it's very clearly shows it in the book that where those marks are. The problem is this propeller shaft went through a lot in the last, I don't know, 60 years. So first there's a mark here. What we found is right here and right here. So there's two arrows there, and they match up. This propeller shaft was balanced not too long ago in a propeller shaft balancing shop. So I really respect the marks what they put on, because that's how this shaft is balanced nicely. The problem comes here, where there's like a mark here, but there's also a mark here. So that's a little bit tricky. We're gonna take this mark off to make sure that this will go back the same way we pulled it apart. And then we're gonna be able to remove a knot, and then we can remove this bearing housing, or this support bearing, because that rubber is already cracked. Now we're taking off the nuts, and then we can get to the big nut, what is inside the prop shaft. Now that it came apart, here is the nut what we need to take off, and then we can remove this prop shaft support. We put an extra mark on it just to be sure, but it basically follows the mark what was on it. You can see that that's where the problem is. This rubber is worn out. My friend has a real gigantic vise, and then I'm pretty sure he got it from the old communist era. And we put a little aluminum tabs so it wouldn't hurt the metal. And now we're gonna remove the knot. The knot coming off, and then the whole thing gonna fall if you're not holding it. There was a little mark on it, but we reinforced it with our own pan, so you can see, make sure that it goes back into the same position, because if you put it in a different orientation, then the mark what we have is not gonna line up with the other ones, and then everything's gonna go out of balance. So that's important, because this is what connecting the front shaft with the rear shaft. So now we got this off. Now we can try to get this one off as well. So there's a washer on it, what gotta come off. It has to come off. And then now we're gonna try to find some pullers to pull this thing off. In Kentucky, I have one of these puller sets, so I asked my buddy to buy me one, and sure enough, it worked here. So what we did is we installed this part upside down, just so, and then we put the hammer and the bronze piece on top. This is gonna fall off. I don't know why. So we have one of these bronze pieces, and with that bronze piece, we hit that while it was suspended with this thing over here. So we basically just hit it out like that. So now we're gonna install the next one. There is a washer on it, and then the new part can go on. And then we found a socket, which we're gonna put there, and then we're gonna hit it back on. Now we're gonna reinstall everything. First the washer, and then we're gonna put the other thing on. Make sure we observe the mark on it, and now we can put the other washer on, which I don't know where it went, but there it is. I'm gonna put another washer on, and we're gonna put this on, and then we're gonna torque it down and tighten it up. And now we're going to use the torque wrench and torque it up. Now that we reassembled the drive shaft, everything is on mark and everything is back where it was. Now we're going to change this flex plate. And you can see there's two different areas of the flex plate. One is going on the prop shaft and the other side is going on the transmission. And on the transmission side, that's the aluminum part, the transmission side, there is a little hole in there. And now we're going to just take those bolts off and reinstall the new flex plate. The orientation is important, to which side is which, because one side has that hole what will align with that with the output shaft of the transmission, and the other side will line up with the prop shaft. So you can see there's the hole. This is the wrong way, so it goes on this way. So it will line up with that piece what's sticking out from the output shaft from the transmission. I never really trust the torque of these power tools, so just to be sure, we're gonna torque it down. Now that we're done with this, we're gonna put it aside and then we're gonna take the transmission off. Now I just removed the first bolts on the top, and then we're gonna go to the bottom and remove the accessories from the transmission. First, we're gonna remove these reverse light cables. Then here's the shifter mechanism, which will need to come off. If I can show it to you, it's right there. And then we're gonna remove the clutch as well, the clutch cylinder, which looks like it's leaking a little bit. Got a bunch of things off, like that shifting lever. Then the transmission mount, now it's sitting on this transmission jack. And then on the front, I removed the clutch cylinder, the slave cylinder, and then I'm gonna take this dust shield off, and then the exhaust holder, and then hopefully we can let it down just a little more, and we can get to the speedometer cable, which is on the other side of this thing. It's just so tight. Somebody tightened it up so badly I can't get to it and can't loosen it up. Finally, we're able to remove the speedometer cable, which is right here, and then we remove the holder for the exhaust, and then all the bolts are out from the transmission. And I'm gonna put a little bit of a wooden plank here, and then just to make sure it doesn't fall too far when we take the transmission down. There's some leakage, but I don't know where it's coming from, so I'm gonna have to investigate that once the transmission is off. Well, it came off. It wasn't easy. So the real battle, because on the top right corner where the starter goes in, there was an interference between the body and this, but now it's finally off. Here's this really nice modern clutch assembly, which we're gonna remove and put the original one back on. We got the clutch off. Here's the clutch disc. They practically put it on not too long ago, so it's still fine, but I wanted to change the flywheel, and this flywheel is for a Polish car, which actually fit here, but it has a different setup for the clutch parts. So I'm gonna replace this with the original one, what the car came with. Well, it came off real nice. You can see the pilot bearing in it. It's all new, the seal is new, everything is in good shape. You just have a little leak on the top, well, a major leak. And this seal looks like it was changed recently, but it still leaks a little bit at the bottom, but it's an Italian car, I guess it gotta leak something. Almost every other vehicle I did this job on, one of these holes were offset. So one of these holes moved just a little bit to the side, so you only can put this flywheel on one way. Not on this one. Italians didn't do that. So I was thinking, how am I gonna figure out how is this gonna go on? But I finally found a mark on it. So there is a dot and the dot is right there, and that dot will have to line up with this dot over here. If I will show it to you, right, that one. Then it would be at the position where the factory installed it. Everything is prepped. We prepped the bolts, and then here's this washer what's gonna go on the flywheel. And then these threads are also prepped and cleaned. And now we can put the flywheel on, observing the mark. And then I'm gonna tighten the bolts, and I'm just gonna look up what the torque specification is for this in the book. And we're gonna torque them down. Now the bolts are in. Now we're gonna use the torque wrench and torque it up or torque it down. The way we were able to hold the flywheel from turning is that I put one of these bolts back on, and then I put the screwdriver here in the ring gear, in that gear, the starter gear, and then I was able to hold it back from turning. So now the flywheel is on. I'm gonna put on the new clutch assembly. When they manufacture these parts, they usually put a slight coat of oil on it. So before we install it, I'm gonna remove the oil from this surface only to make sure that it will not contaminate the nice new clutch disc. I'm gonna use some alcohol for it and some rags. This clutch plate has two sides. One is a little bit sticking out, the other one is flat. The flat side goes towards the engine, and then the clutch plate or clutch assembly, that will go here. This has two little holes, and there's like two little pins on it, and those little pins has to line up right there, they lined up. And then we can put the bolts in, but not supposed to tighten up right away. So we're supposed to do one here, one on the other side, one here, one on the other side, and slowly around, like going on circular motions, we would finish it up. Actually, not circular motion, like basically one here, one on the opposite side, one here, one on the opposite side, and one here, one on the opposite side, and then tighten it down. Now the bolts are in but not tight, but if you see through this hole, the two holes will not line up at the moment. So this will need to slide down a little bit. So while it's not tight, a little bit loose, you're still gonna be able to move this with a little force to move it down a little bit or line it up. There's a tool what you can buy which will line it up for you immediately, but I don't have that tool. It's very specific. I got it for an Austin Hilly and a Chevy, but I certainly do not have it for a Fiat.
Péter, ez nem jó nyeles tengelyhelyet neked? Szerintem pontstéma lehet.
Hát ezen beszarok. Már elnézést. My friend just showed up with one of these. This is what we're supposed to use in this. So it's incredible. Yep, that works. So now I got it all tightened. And here are the adjustment bolts for it. And what you need to set up is that these ones has to be at the same distance from the top. If it's a little bit off, then the throwout bearing gonna go a little bit like this, and then it's gonna do like this, and it's gonna shake your clutch pedal. That's why the newer version clutch is a lot better option, but that's not an option for here right now because I wanted to use the original flywheel. Otherwise, I'm supposed to really balance the whole thing together like the way you see it now with the crankshaft, but I can't take that out right now. I have time constraints, so this is what it is. That's how far I got. So now you're gonna change the bearing on the transmission, that throwout bearing, and then we can put the transmission back on. So here's the throwout bearing. That's what I need to change to a new one, but came with that clutch kit. I ran into a little problem. So this one is for a Polish car, a Polish Polski Fiat. And this throwout bearing is for that car. It's a little bit larger. This is an original one, which I got with the clutch kit. And you can see how large that is, how small that is. And the problem is this was the fork, and the fork is made for this Polish car, which is a little bit wider. And on this one, it's really wide and it's not matching up. So I need to find a fork which is an original Fiat. So I'm gonna go to my friend's place tomorrow, and then hopefully we can find another fork for it. I found the one and only fork in Budapest. I had a friend who had a friend who had a friend, and then he had a whole bunch of Fiat parts, and he had just about 10 of these, but only one of these. So this is an original Fiat part. So now I'm gonna migrate the new bearing over, and then we're gonna install it on the car or on the transmission. Meanwhile, last night we opened up the drain plug for the engine oil, so the engine oil was dripping all night long. While we're preparing the fork, put a little paint on it, we're gonna change the transmission mount, because that's an aftermarket transmission mount on it. It doesn't really work too well, it's too hard. So I just got an original Pirelli one, which I'm gonna install now. We just basically got to take it off there and then take off those bolts and put the new one on. There's a spacer on it in between, so I pull the bolt out, spacer out, and then the whole thing can come out easy. I'm finished installing the mount, so the whole thing can go back on the transmission. Okay, we prepped the fork, greased it up, gonna put it on the bearing, install it where it goes, where it belongs to, and we're gonna try to throw the transmission up. It's gonna be a battle, but we'll make it happen. We've installed the fork, so now it works very nicely. So there's the hydraulic cylinder goes out the outside, and then pushing it, so you can see the bearing is moving up and down, and then that will push the clutch plate. So it's ready to install. This is the shifter linkage, and it's just a little bit tight, so I think I'm gonna take it off and grease it up, and then leave it off until we actually put the whole thing back on. So until the transmission is on, and then the oil filter is very visible from here, and it's really easy to reach. So I'm just gonna change that oil filter while the transmission is not on, but you do not need to remove the transmission to change the oil filter. It's not a Ferrari. So here's the new classic oil what I'm gonna put in it, and I just used a little bit of oil to wet up the rubber seal on it, and then we're gonna install it. The oil filter is up. Now I took this one off. This is a shifter linkage, and then now I'm just gonna clean it up and grease it up and put it back together. In this car there's not too much of a space. Here's a little the starter, opposite side of the starter casting is sticking out. So what I'm thinking we're gonna do is we're gonna pull the transmission in a little bit sideways. We're gonna go through here in this hole, and then we're gonna move it around, and then it's gonna go up. That's the idea. We'll see how it works. We ran into a little trouble down there because there's not enough space. So we figured we're gonna need to move the whole engine back a little bit, but nothing moved because the exhaust is one piece. I just kicked something, I don't know what it was. So we had to remove the exhaust. And then now the engine is moving a little bit, so hopefully we can lift it up just a little bit and get the right angle for the transmission to slide on. The engine tilting was successful. Now we have enough space to slide the transmission on, so I got the first two bolts on it. So now we're just gonna have to lower the front, raise the back, and the transmission is in position. Before I really gonna raise it, I'm gonna install the speedometer cable because it's really inaccessible, and right now I can still get to it. Now that everything is up, the speedometer cable is installed. Now I'm just gonna try to put the starter motor back on, and clearly I'm gonna have to find a new solenoid for it, and then we're gonna lower the front. The front of the engine is down, so now we just got to lift up the back and then install the engine mounts, transmission mounts. So we're gonna take out the solenoids wires. I'm having a hard time putting the starter back on, so I'm gonna take all these wires off, and it looks like they're all kind of dirty, so I'm gonna have to clean them up anyway. There's just no way to put that starter back on. There's not enough space, so we have to remove the generator in order for the starter to go back, forward, and in. We're supposed to think of this before we push the transmission up, because I just pulled it aside, but it was in the way. So right now we're trying to take the generator off. The upper bracket is off already, so now we're working on the bottom ones. The starter motor is up, and I cleaned up the connector where the wire goes on the starter motor, and we tightened up all the bolts. Now comes the generator on the front, which is sitting there, so that's the next thing. We gotta put it back on. Next, I'm gonna put a little sealant over here, and we're gonna pull it back together, and then finally the generator is up, and then I'm gonna clean the wires. We're gonna go back on the starter motor to make sure they have a good connection. I put some ultra copper on it, and then I put some anti-seize lube on the nuts, so now it can go back all together. I cleaned up all the electrical connectors, so what I can put back on the starter motor. Hopefully it will improve the charging, but I think I'm just gonna bring another generator from the US and a starter solenoid, because apparently you can buy it there, but you cannot find any over here. While we were putting on the generator, one of the cables separated down there. I don't know how much you can see it, but we need to address that problem. Here's the problem. This is what came off, and looks like it's really dirty. I'm even surprised that it's actually charged, but we're gonna put this on, clean off the nuts, or the knot and the washer, and then put it back all together. The new end on it, so now I just gotta put the knot back on and we can continue at the bottom of the car. Now we're gonna concentrate on the bottom of the car. So first I'm gonna install the upper shifter lever, because now we got enough space for it. And then we're gonna lift this up, and then we're gonna install the transmission to the chassis. I got the shaft greased up, and I got the nut installed, and now this one will go in here, and then this thing will go up on the body like so. So I'm gonna install those bolts, and then we're done here. All the shifting levers are done, so now I'm just gonna put this little dust shield up here in front of the flywheel with these 4 bolts. Everything is up, including this holder bracket that holds the exhaust system in position. So I'm gonna install this with this, and then I can tighten up all the bolts on the other side as well. I finally win the battle with these bolts. Some actually had a little bit of thread problems, but I put a longer bolt in it that fixed it, so everything is all tightened up. Now I can put the slave cylinder on. The slave cylinder has an adjustment on it, so I might have to adjust it because it's a different clutch assembly. So next thing I'm gonna do that. So if you see the fork here, the fork has to actually, before it touches the clutch assembly, it has to have a little bit of clearance. That's what we're going for. I put this on. It's still, I adjusted a little bit, but it's still not correct. There's no clearance, so I gotta take the bolts off, take that middle bolt out, and then we're gonna put it in a vise, and then we're gonna adjust it a little more. So you can see there is one side, there's the other side. You can put it in the vise, and then I'm gonna screw this one in a little bit more, but it's kind of hard to do. It's a really solid, oh, there's the lock nut on it, so that's why. Now that I released the lock nut, now actually I can adjust it by hand, and I keep looking at how far is it, but I think it's just right now. I still got a little bit of clearance, and I'm gonna just put this lock nut back on, and then we are in good shape. Finally reached the point where we can put the drive shaft back on, so we're gonna do the same thing. From the front of the car, we're gonna move it forward to the back and then reattach everything. The front is up and it's all tightened down. So now we're gonna do the rear part. The rear part is a little tricky because it's actually leaks. So we're gonna have to use a little bit of sealant to put it back together. We have tightened up all the nuts on it. And then now the only thing what's left is to put this one up. The only problem is that the bolt doesn't go in. It still has the same thread, but for some reason at the manufacturing process, the thread probably has some weld in it, or I don't know what. So we need to run through a tap on it, so make sure this has a good thread in it. Looks like maybe at the manufacturing process there was some mistakes made. I don't know, but the thread is gonna be all nice and cut now, and then we can put that bracket up. First I'm gonna tighten this one up just a little bit more, then I'm gonna put the 2 bolts on each side, and then this will have a chance to actually set itself up, and then we can tighten it all down. Well, the bolts are tight. Now I just need to put back up this hand brake return spring where it belongs. I think we are done. I'm just gonna go through and think about it for a second. So I tightened down this clamp. I tightened down this clamp over here from the exhaust. Then the drain plug is tight. This thing set up and actually been secured. Everything else, shifting mechanism, all the bolts for the flex plate, that's good. All the bolts here, the little return spring for the handbrakes, and then all the way back with these bolts. I think we are done here. So let's go upstairs and see what's up there. And then we are up here. So the only thing what's missing right now is the oil. So I'm gonna put the oil in it. And then in order not to run it without oil pressure, I disconnected the coil plug or coil wire. So we're gonna fill it up and then crank the engine until the oil pressure comes up, so it would not run it without any oil. Well, finally we finished the project. I don't know if the clutch is working yet, but we'll try to make it out from the garage and see if it happens. You never know with an Italian car. We're gonna continue the project with removing the rear axles. I got this sliding hammer for it, but that's gonna be in another episode. So far so good. Clutch works great. It's a little bit harder to push than the other one was, but it works very smoothly. So now I'm gonna drive to my friend's place. It's gonna involve some freeway driving, and we'll see if we fixed anything on the grinding noise. I just got to my friend's place and it involves some freeway driving, and it's a very different car than it was before. So it's not shaking anymore, like it wanna shake itself apart, but it still sounds like a World War II bomber from the rear axle. So I'm kind of thinking the rear wheel bearings might be the cause, because if I make the car pull, the sound doesn't change. If I engine brake, the sound doesn't change. If I put it into neutral, the sound doesn't change. So it tells me that it's most likely wheel bearings. It changes by the RPM, basically how fast I'm going, the wheel RPM. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to change those wheel bearings. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm gonna have to pull apart the rear axle. I got the tools for it, I got the parts for it, so next time we're gonna attack that. So thank you for watching, and I will do that bearing change in the next episode, which is gonna be in 2 weeks of time on Friday. Thanks again, bye.